Hey friends, welcome to another edition of 4 Minutes on Friday. Today, I wanted to talk about just kind of reflect on an interview that I had kind of come across a little while ago. It was an interview that Joe Rogan had done on his podcast, The Joe Rogan Experience. Now, if you're not familiar with Joe Rogan, he's willing to talk to, I would imagine, almost anybody. That is able to have an interesting conversation, and it is a long form conversation. Sometimes the episodes last 3 hours, so it can be kind of set aside maybe a couple of days even to get through some of the content that he talks about. The one interview that really caught my attention recently was an interview with Robert Downey Jr. I think at the beginning of 2020. And it was interesting because of something that Robert Downey Jr. said. And that's a 12-minute segment. It's easy to find on YouTube. So if you're interested, you can check that out. One of the things, though, that I thought was very interesting that Robert Downey Jr. said, and I don't remember the exact line of questioning. It had something to do with understanding the success that you have in life and whatever it is that you're doing, relationships, career, whatever. Robert Downey Jr. talked about the importance of getting out of your own way. Now, they kind of range all over as they talk about this idea of getting out of your own way. Robert Downey Jr. uses the phrase being kept right side up. And you really almost have to listen to the entire 12 minutes because there's a lot of barstool philosophy that kind of goes on in this particular conversation, which, quite honestly, I'm fine with. That kind of conversation. But one of the things that I thought was incredibly important that both of them kind of talked about was we have a tendency at different times as we are doing things in our lives, whether it is in relationships or with our career, that we tend to either overthink it or become hypercritical of what it is that we are doing, whether we are accomplishing something or whether we're trying to recover from some sort of a failure or a setback. And one of the things that just kind of popped to me was that phrase of being willing to get out of your own way, to trust either training that you have had, or to trust something that someone has said to you that was intended to spur you on, to encourage you, or to trust the things that, for me, in my understanding, my relationship with God, trust the things that I know that God has said to me, and so that can be hard to do because we can be hypercritical. We can get in our own way. That we can become, it's easy to become self-seeking and kind of drawn inward to where we are no longer engaging in the world that is surrounding us. We're just kind of focusing on ourselves. Now, especially for me as a local pastor, as I guess you could call it a devout follower of Jesus, I have come to the place where I have been willing to accept the mandate, I guess you could call it, of making sure that I understand my life is not just about me, that my life is to be poured into others. But if I don't get out of my own way, if I don't stop being hypercritical of me, the things that I have done or the things that I have not done, and I can easily then become self-centered and inward-seeking, and get completely locked up in what I am or am not doing. That can become paralyzing and very limiting. So I would encourage you today, as you, whenever it is that you listen to it, whether it's right away on Friday or it's sometime over the weekend or much later, this is something you're catching up on way after the fact, I would just encourage you to make sure that you are not locking yourself down into destructive self-sabotage patterns, that you are you're allowing um, the things that God has put into your path to actually have some results, to experience some fruition of some things that you have worked hard for. But to recognize that your life is not just to be lived for you, that you can get out of your own way so that your life can be poured into others. All right. Hope you have a great Friday, great weekend. We'll talk to you again next week.